Hey, well, thank you very much. My name is Marie Russell, and thanks for joining us today for what I believe is going to be a great session. Having been part of the AFCEA Small Business Committee for a number of years, I think this is near and dear certainly to my heart, and for all of us who have been in small business and are small business leaders, how do we continue to gain more business with DISA and with the government? And I think anything you can share with us today, Brenda's going to be excellent. So to that end, we have small business, how to influence the acquisition decision, become part of market research. So the hidden secret there. So we're looking forward to that. So today our speaker is Brenda Leonard. She serves as the Associate Director of Office of Small Business Programs, OSBP, for DISA. She's been with the DISA OSBP for 12 years and has been a material player in the agency, repeatedly exceeding their small business goals during that time. Mrs. Leonard is co-located at Scott Air Force Base, Illinois, with the DISA Defense Information Technology Contracting Organization, DITCO. Prior to joining the Office of Small Business Programs, Ms. Leonard was a DISA contracting officer and held an unlimited warrant. She was hand-selected to be the sole DISA contracting officer to work in the groundbreaking partnership effort with GSA for the future ComSatcom services acquisition, valued at over $5 billion, paving the way for future joint endeavors. Before coming to DISA, Ms. Leonard managed the AMC station manager contract for 18 countries in Central and South America, ensuring embassy personnel and military members stationed there were able to receive shipments without incident. So they'll be very helpful right now. So with that, we welcome Brenda Leonard. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you for that introduction. Did everyone like the fire drill? I wanted to make sure you were all going to be awake so that you got to stretch your legs before you came in here to listen. So I don't want anybody sleeping, so you're welcome. And you get a private session, since we should have had about 3 times this amount of people in here who said, yes, I'm coming, but you guys get a private session so you'll know the secrets and they won't. Here's our disclaimer. My disclaimer, too, on the conversation that we're going to have today is I'm going to be talking about it from the DISA perspective. Lots of you do contracting with other government agencies, and I can't speak for how they do their business, so I will be speaking for how we do our business at DISA. Before we can talk about how to influence the process, you have to know what the process is. So we're going to talk a little bit about the process that we use when we do our acquisition decision making, and it all starts with our market research. There are several different people that are involved with market research. The program offices, contracting officers, our office with small business professionals. So it starts with the main person, and that's the program office. They are the ones who have the heavy burden of pulling in as much information about the industry and the acquisition as they can prior to putting something out on the street. They use a lot of different methods. They go to industry events like this, they engage with industry, they do sources sought, they do internet searches, they use a lot of different tools that we have available to gather their information. Once they've done that and put it together in a market research report, it goes to our contracting officers. Our contracting officers then verify and validate that the information that they've gathered is accurate and true, and specifically if it's going to be a full and open type of requirement, they do independent market research above and beyond what the program offices did to ensure that due diligence is done to see whether or not this requirement could actually be set aside for small businesses. So that's a checks and balances that we have in there. Our office is also involved because we do capability briefings all the time with small businesses, and we build a database of your capability briefings that can be searched by either the contracting office or the program office by NAICS codes and skill sets. So when you do a capability briefing with our office, that information is also being used in the market research that will ultimately go to help make the decision. So we ask a lot of different kind of questions when we do market research. The biggest question is, who can do it? And DISA is a very small business friendly agency. So when a requirement comes through that needs to be procured, the first thing that we do is assume it can be done by small businesses. So until the market research proves otherwise, every requirement that come in, we think, okay, this is going to go to small business. Now, in reality, we know not everything in the world can be done by small businesses, but it has to be documented and proved in the market research that it cannot before it goes out as a full and open requirement. We do follow the rule of two. So if we find two or more capable, qualified companies that can do the work, it will come out as a small business set-aside. Many times we get questions in from small businesses that say, I sent in a source of thought, I should be in the market research, I should be able to do this. The difference is capable, qualified businesses. Not every business that wants to do a particular requirement is going to be deemed capable and qualified. We have companies that hang out a shingle one week and send in a source of thought the next week, having never ever done that type of work, never had that experience before, but they hired somebody who has a skill set that might fit. Your company is not going to be considered capable and qualified. So there is a difference between wanting to do it and thinking you can do it and actually being deemed capable and qualified. Because you have to remember, who is our end user? The warfighters. These are critical things that we buy, and our customer sometimes depends life and death on it. So we need to make sure that we have the best companies that are going to do this work. One of the other things we have to find out, in accordance with the NDAA of 2017, is it commercial? We have to document in our requirement whether or not what we're buying as a service or a product is commercial. So we look for that information. We also look for the types of vehicles that we can purchase this on. That's part of the market research that we do, and I'll go into a little more detail in that later, but we are looking at all the different avenues of where it fits. One big thing we look for is, what month is it? What time of the year is it? Are we talking about the end of fiscal year? Is it September 1st? That changes how we do our acquisition strategies. If it would have been February, we may have been able to do a competitive type of requirement and been okay with it. But if it's September 1st and it has to be on contract by September 30th, we're going to use other methods. One of the methods that we use a lot at the end of the fiscal year is the direct 8A sole source type of awards. It's perfect, it fits right into what we need at that particular time, and that's when we use it to the maximum that we can so that we can get things on contract before the end of the fiscal year. We also have to keep in mind that every federal agency is given goals that we're supposed to make throughout the year. In our agency, we've done very well throughout the years in making our goals. And one of the things that we look at when we're making the strategy decision is, are we low in any particular area? This year specifically, we are targeting service-disabled, veteran-owned companies, and we're doing it for a good reason. Our numbers have dropped because of the successes that our service-disabled companies have had. We've had several companies that have done so well in DISA, they're no longer small. So we don't get their numbers anymore. Now we need a couple more really qualified service-disabled companies so that we can get those numbers back up again. So if we have market research that lends us to doing a service-disabled set-aside, that's what we're going to be looking to do. We also have the new initiative that came out from the president that said we're supposed to be increasing our numbers with small disadvantaged businesses. So we're up to over 14% of our spend is supposed to be with small disadvantaged businesses. Now, we haven't been given any tools to be able to do that, so the only way that we can really do that and increase our numbers is through the 8A program, because that's the only place that we have the ability to do a set-aside and ensure that we're going to get credit in that particular goal area. Whoops. I got to stop talking with my hands because I'm turning my pages. All right, so we're going to talk about things you can do to influence the decision, and that is become part of the market research. These vehicles that are up here are either ones that we currently use or will be using as they get awarded. In your long-range business strategy, you should be projecting to get on a contract, a pre-awarded contract, either through GSA or one of these vehicles. And I understand that there are limits when you're a small business, and sometimes this is a heavy ask to do. But the reality is all federal agencies are being mandated to use pre-awarded contracts prior to going to SAM.gov. So if you have the capabilities and the experience to win one of these contract vehicles, it's highly, highly recommended that if you are going to stay in the government contracting field, you look to see which one you can get on. I've listed the different ones that are out here and the dates that they're coming up for expiration. NASA Soup is something that we use very heavily. If you are a reseller of software or hardware products and you're not on NASA Soup, your window is now to be watching for that solicitation to come out. So we spend millions and millions of dollars on NASA Soup every year. So if you're in that space, that is one of the vehicles that you should be looking at. The NIH CIO SP3 contract is right now in evaluation. So if you miss that window, it's just something to keep in mind in your long-range planning that you may want to be looking for in the future. GSA Mass is available at all times. It's an open solicitation. So if you need to start somewhere and you don't have any other contracts, GSA Mass is also a very good one for you to get on. DISA uses it very heavily. Between that one and Soup, those are our first go-tos, usually when it can't go on something that's internal. The STARS 3 just got awarded. So we have a lot of vendors that are on there. We do use STARS 3. Oasis is going to get ready to expire, and it is going to be replaced by something currently called the BIC Mac. It's really hard to say. And it says FY22 is when the RFP is supposed to come out, so I would keep an eye on that if you fall into the categories that are listed here for the different types of contracts. Polaris, I just got informed by somebody who put in a proposal that it's on hold due to some protests. But if you haven't put in a proposal for it and you are a service disabled or a hub zone, that window is still open for you. So it's something to look at if you have IT solutions and are looking for a vehicle. VETS 2 is recently awarded. We're going to start using that one as much as we can because I said we need more service disabled companies, and that's the vehicle that's got them, so we're going to start pushing that one. And then our own internal contracts, the Encore and the SETI contracts, both suites of full and open and small business, those are fairly new and they have quite a life cycle left on them. So even though there are first look contracts, as new contractors, you're not going to have an opportunity to be able to be a prime on there, but there is always subcontracting opportunities, especially if your company does something in a niche area that you could be a subcontractor to someone who has a prime contract. That's a good opportunity for you to get in on the internal DISA contracts. Okay, that's one of the methods. Another one that you can do, it's easy, it's free, and it's totally within your control. The Dynamic Small Business Search tool in SBA searches your profiles that you all filled out as small businesses. Every piece of information that's in there is under your control. You are the ones that put that information in there. We use that tool on every market research report that we do for services in DISA. So if your information, does anybody in here know what garbage in, garbage out means? Okay, so if you're a little bit older, you should know what garbage in, garbage out means. So in the computer world, when they first came out, it means the quality of information that you put in cannot be better than the quality of information you expect to come out. So this, like I said, is 100% up to you. You need to help us find you by doing the right information in your profile, and you have 3 areas that you can do it. There's 3 sections that you fill out the information yourself. The capabilities narrative, the special equipment, materials, and the keywords section. All up to you. One thing that we do when we do these searches is we'll go look at your website, and if you're an IT company and you say, I'm the premier IT company, but we go to your website and it's awful and it doesn't move from page to page, we're not really going to put a lot of faith in the fact that you're the premier IT company, because your website doesn't work and that's all IT. So one of the reasons that we use this as a mandatory source is we are searching on the skills and abilities of your companies to see whether or not it deems to have further research. So you are going to put in information about your company, and you have 3 very large blocks. I don't know what the word count is because I can't have access to it, not being a vendor, but my recommendation is keep putting in words until it stops you from putting in words, because the more words you have in there, the more chances you have of showing up on the list when we do this. This is how we use it. In the center of the page of the Dynamic Small Business Search is a section that says specific nature of business. We put in one NAICS code because our requirement has one NAICS code, and we put in one keyword or key phrase that is a critical part of our requirement, because we need to know that your company has that critical part of the requirement. So there's our NAICS code, there's our keyword. Then we run the search. From that one keyword, it had to be in one of those 3 areas. It pulls from all 3 areas. So you actually don't have to repeat yourself in any of those areas. We got 742 companies that had that keyword in there. Now, that's too many companies for us to individually look at. So what we'll do is we'll narrow it down. But just to give you an example, and these are all made up names in here, so we are not pointing anybody out. But if you notice the first one, it's blank. They're knocked out right away. They have no information about their company. We're not going to do any extra work to figure out your company. If you don't have the information in there, you're out. The next one wasted their space because they said, I'm a joint venture on Stars 3. That doesn't tell me what you do. I have no idea what you do. I don't know what your job is or what your skills are. What you're supposed to put in here are words that deal with your industry and your skills. So if you look on here, it talks about scheduling, project management, IT support services. And you'll see some of them are small and some of them are large. But like I mentioned, there is an almost unlimited amount of information you can put in here. But it doesn't need to be long sentences. You don't need to put information in there about where you're located because your address is already there. So make sure you use that space to use every possible keyword about your skills and abilities that you can. So to get from the 742 to the next area, we're going to add a word. So we now have our NAICS code and we have 2 different words. We're going to run the test. It comes up 90. So we've narrowed it way down by the company has to have both of those words. These are both skills that you must have to be able to do this requirement. So if it's not in there, we don't know that you can do it. So we're now down to 90 profiles, but that's still too many for us to use. So the last thing that we're going to do is add one more. And you notice under keywords how it's marked all. You have to have all 3 of them to show up on this list. So now we have 3 very important critical things that are going to be necessary in order for us to find you. And we're down to 17 profiles. And that's great. That's exactly in the wheelhouse of how many we need. And we can work with that. And what we'll do from this point is we're going to pull up that list of companies. And we're going to do a deep dive into those companies because we are trying to find sources that have the skills and abilities that we need. So if you notice on here how many words are in this center one, they have taken all the opportunities in the world to make sure that we can find them. Some of the things that you might want to put in here are things like your ISO certification, your CMMI certifications, those, if they're part of our requirement, we can use those as keyword searches. If it must have it, then that's going to be the first word we're going to use, something that absolutely has to be in there. So once we get to this point, we're going to go to your website and we're going to review your website. And if your website matches up with what's on here and you seem to be a viable candidate, then you can become part of the market research. If we go to your website and it has landscaping information on it that doesn't match up with this, we're probably not going to go any farther. You've got to understand when we're doing these processes that there's so much to do in such a short amount of time that we're expecting to get the information right away to be able to make you part of our market research. All right, another method. Sources soughts and RFIs. There's a difference between them. They are not the same. A lot of times the terms are used interchangeably, but they are not the same. The sources sought, we already know what we're buying. It may be a recompete. All we need to know is currently who in the industry has the capabilities to do this, and specifically, are there small businesses in the industry that have the ability to do this? And then the request for information is a whole different game. The request for information is, we have an idea, we've heard about this really great cutting edge stuff out in industry, we don't know anything about it, and we need industry to help us figure out, is this something we want to buy and how should we buy it? So those are the two different venues that we go with when we're doing market research. You'll see a lot of our sources sought posted on sam.gov. We try to put all of them there because that is the widest variety for people to be able to see it. You don't have to have a vehicle to be able to see it, and we want to get as much industry responses as we can. So we do put them out there, and our office will actually review these before they get put out to ensure that we're not overburdening industry on the information that we're asking for, and that we are being very clear in the questions that we ask. So when we ask for these types of things, we are looking for your skills and your abilities and your capabilities, your experiences. The questions are actually termed, tell us your experience in doing this, and there's a reason for that. The government is not really a good place to try and cut your teeth on contracting. If you have experience in industry, in commercial world, it's very transferable to the government. But we're looking for companies that have experience in doing particular types of services and providing products. So we're going to look at them very carefully when the responses come in. And these are actually reviewed by the program offices who are technical. So they're going to understand the technical information that you put in here. But you want to be able to be very clear on how, as a small business, you are going to accomplish 100% of the requirement. If you plan to partner with someone and your skill set covers your 50% of it, you still have to be able to provide the information and details on how the other half is going to be accomplished also, because we're not going to hire someone to do 50%, even though that is what the requirement is for small businesses to get a set aside, is you only have to do 50%. But as the prime, you're responsible for 100%. So being responsible for the 100%, you need to be able to share with the program offices how you're going to accomplish the whole 100% of the requirement. And if you're going to be a JV or you're going to have subcontractors, all of that information needs to be in there so that when they review it, they're going to go, this person understands the requirement. I can tell that by how this is written. They have experience in doing it because they've described their experience in response to the questions where we asked, describe your experience. And they've laid out how, as a small business, they are going to accomplish 50% or more of the contract. So that makes them eligible to have a small business set aside. In order to influence the acquisition decision, there has to be enough small businesses respond that are capable and qualified that we can do a small business set aside. I mentioned the rule of 2. So we ask you to contact your frenemies. You know your industry better than anybody else. You know your competitors who are also small and maybe even in the same socioeconomic category that you are. And if you're trying to drive the decision to a socioeconomic category, we need to have 2 or more in that category who can do this type of work. So getting your frenemies to respond to it also will help build the market research report and have documented information that there's more than one company that can do this work. So our office can also help get you part of the market research. We offer a lot of tools and things that are available to you. Our DISA 101 class, if you are new to DISA and have not done business with DISA before, we highly recommend you sign up for our 101 class. It's going to give you the beginning steps that you're going to need in order to get a good start, and we will get you along the way with the process. The next step we would do is a capability briefing, and we would put that capability briefing in our database so it's accessible to everyone else. We'll get you on our distribution list for events and announcements of upcoming things. We're also offering classes now to industry on different things like proposal tips and just a lot of different kinds of things. We did one on GSA schedules recently for industry to learn from GSA how that whole process works. You can also do a capability briefing with the program office, and we can help get that going. We also have a new initiative that's out that will be very helpful to you, which is letting you know the acquisition decisions in a timely manner. If you go to our main website at disa.mil, right in the center, right at the front, it says acquisition decisions, and every 30 days we're updating this form that tells you what decisions are confirmed on what vehicles, how the requirements are coming out, and the timing of when it comes out. So this is brand new. It's only been out for 2 months, and at the beginning of every month there's going to be an updated acquisition decision document there. It's going to be short because it's only the decisions that have been made within the last 30 days. But it's a good way to keep abreast of what is coming out and what vehicles they're going on. Okay, so what is an elevator speech? An example, you get on the elevator at the 12th floor, you're coming down to this. Someone that you have been trying to get in contact with the whole 3 days of this conference stops the elevator at floor 10 and gets on. You've got from floor 10 to floor 2 to give a pitch to this person to get their attention, and that's called an elevator speech. Let me give you an example of the elevator speech. Hi, my name is John Paul Jones from ABC Company, and we excel at white hat hacking. I understand your division is in need of penetration testing and someone to identify vulnerabilities in your current systems. I think we could be a great asset for you. Could we set up a time to discuss this in more detail? So that takes about 18 seconds to do that. So from floor 10 to floor 2, you should be able to do that. You didn't waste time by saying, I'm a small business. You didn't say, I'm a hub zone. You went straight to the heart of your skills and abilities and something that you researched so that when you talk to that person you've been trying to talk to, you grab their attention and they say, yeah, here's my card, let's talk. So that's what you're trying to do with an elevator speech. So do you need one? I would say you do. If you don't have one, I recommend you think through it and figure out if there's somebody in here that if you had the opportunity to meet in one short time frame, you would have something ready to say to them. There's another version of this that's a little bit longer, and that is a pitch. When you're doing a pitch, you have a little bit more time, but you still want it to be focused. If you're pitching to one of the DISA program tables, your end result you're still trying to get to, your goal is a follow-up meeting. To all of these pitches, that's what your goal is a follow-up meeting. But the pitch to the tables will be a little bit different. But you start it the same way. This is my name, this is my company, this is what I can do for you. I know you have a problem, I know you have an issue, this is what I can do for you. Do not start your conversation with any of the program tables under the DISA pavilion with, I'm a small business. I'm a hub zone, I'm a woman-owned. It doesn't matter. They're not looking to hire you because you're a small business. They're looking to hire you because of the skills that you bring. After your conversation, after they say, wow, I like this, you sound like somebody I need, how can I get to you? Then you talk about your hub zone, or you talk about your 8A, and you bring in the fact that you're a small business, but you really don't want to start your conversation with a small business. Now, on the opposite side of that, all of these large businesses that are out here are the place that when you talk to them, you should start your conversation with, I'm a hub zone company and I'm in the cybersecurity realm. And the reason for that is they all have subcontracting goals that they need to meet on all of their contracts. So to them, it's important what category you're in. It's not important to the program people what category you're in. It's important what your skills and abilities are. So the difference between the two when you have your conversations is just knowing the audience and knowing what it is that's going to get you to the next step and to the next meeting. Okay. So now you know that the way that you influence the acquisition decision is by becoming part of the market research. That decision is made solely on what is in the market research. And if your company has the skills and ability, and we were able to find your company and you became part of the market research process, then you are able to influence the acquisition decision. At this time, I would like to introduce our office and let you know the faces that go with the names of people you may have talked to with small business. And up front here, we have our director, Ms. Carlin Kapanos. And in the back, we have our small business professionals. The first one is Ms. Jessica Bathon-Logston, and she's located out at Scott Air Force Base, where I'm located. And the newest member of our team is Ms. Regina Pascalucci, and she is located out here in the NCR. So we have two offices of small business programs. One is out at Ditko Scott with our contracting folks, and the other one is out at the NCR with our NCR contracting folks. So those are the people that are available to you. We do have a table underneath of the DISA Pavilion, and so we are available throughout the whole conference for any follow-ups or questions. And now I'd like to open it if anybody has any questions for me. No questions. Oh.
Is this, are you all...
I'm not going to be able to hear that.
Are you all looking at an on-ramp for either one of the contracts, Encore or SETI?
I would say at this time there's nothing planned because there are multiple small businesses on each of those vehicles. And in fairness to people who spent 2 years in the process to get on there, as long as there's a huge viable pool, I don't think they're going to put any more on. But that doesn't mean that in the future, if there's emerging technologies that come out, that opportunity doesn't open.
Okay. The second thing is...
Oh yeah. And the other part of that is, as a small business, you have to recertify at the 5-year point. So if everybody outgrows their size standards and we have no one left who's small business, we would need to replenish the pool.
Okay. The other question I have is you made a comment about the acquisitions that once every 30 days you're going to publish something. Where will that be published?
It's published today. It's on the website. We do it every month, and it's right in the very center of the page. It says acquisition decisions.
Okay, all right.
So
Thank you.
it's there now.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? OTAs. How much influence does the small business office with OTAs?
I would say none. We have an OTA office. But we are not involved with the OTA process.
Okay. Didn't know. Thanks.
So none.
Anyone else? No takers?
Going once, going twice.
Oh, my goodness. Ms. Leonard, I just wanted to thank Steve Goldsby. Carlin's intimately familiar with me and stirring things up for the small business office. I just wanted to thank you for sharing how y'all think and how you use the SBA portal to find us, because a lot of times we don't know how you make your decisions and how you think, and so providing that information is very helpful. So more of that is much appreciated.
You are quite welcome. Those profiles, they're 100% up to you guys. You know, the more information you put in there, the easier it is for us to be able to say, hey, look at the skills that they have. If it's not there, we can't do anything.
I have two questions. The first question is, as you guys are coming up with the acquisition strategy, that conversation, is there a bias toward using your vehicles, DISA vehicles, as kind of first, and you kind of go through the list of, others?
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't use the word bias.
Well, a preference. Preference?
There is a preference because we spent lots and lots of
Sure.
time and money to put those contracts in place, and they're designed to fit our requirements. So they are our first look contracts. We will look there first before any place else.
Okay, thank you.
We will look small first there.
No,
but we
but-
will look for it there first.
Yeah, but there is a tiered way of your thinking.
Yes.
Okay. Then the second question I had was, when I was at the session yesterday and they were talking about the importance of responding to RFIs and the like, and how, and if I think I got this right, with a sources sought, it isn't, no, with an RFI, it isn't as important to make it the be-all, end-all, because you're not being graded on it. You're not being awarded, it's not going directly to award. It's
Correct.
going to research.
Right.
And so the context of the comment made was the burden on industry to respond to things. So that was the context. But my question for you is, so having said that, heard that, I'm thinking, do you think differently about RFIs versus sources sought? And I'm thinking things like, how detailed do you get in, here's how we would propose dealing with, solving the problem?
Okay. So with our sources sought, we give a page limit. We specifically limit, as much as we can, 4 to 7 questions. So the program offices come up with their critical factors on a sources sought of 4 to 7 things that you actually have to be able to do to be successful in the contract. But you only get 5 pages to respond to it. So we're not asking you for a solution, and we're not asking for a proposal. We're asking just for limited information on your experience doing those specific things. So it is short. The RFI is a whole different world. They are looking for white papers. They're sometimes looking for solutions to be proposed. They're not looking for proposals, but to propose technology and things like that. Sometimes they ask for 30 pages or up to 30 pages. They don't ask you to do 30 pages, but you can have up to 30 pages. So they're totally different ball games, and we don't do that many RFIs, but we do them.
Last question, just triggered by what you were saying. I agree with you that from what I've seen, not necessarily in DISA, but there's the terminology of RFI and sources sought is very confusing.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's misused when I've read things and I go, this does not feel. Do you guys, your office, make sure that the term is correctly used on the ones that come out from you guys?
In our agency, yeah, we teach classes to contracting all the time. We are very good at instructing the difference between the two. So, and we can only speak for our own agency, but we have a template for both of them. So when it comes in for review, if it's an RFI and it's on a sources sought template, we'll send it back and say, you're doing an RFI. This has never been done before, and you're asking questions about price. You should not ever see price being asked for on a sources sought. A sources sought is looking for experience and things like that, but not price. So if they're asking for price, they're trying to get a rough order of magnitude on, this is something we know nothing about, so we just kind of need to have an idea how much is the government going to be spending. So they're not asking you to do a price proposal, but there could be price in there. But yes, in our agency, we do try and make it very clear to all of our contracting program people the difference between the two.
Good afternoon. My questions are very similar, but thank you for the setup. So I don't have a lot of setup, but I want to take a different angle. Because I had the same question about the vehicles, the source of SOT. I'm going to stick with that because that can turn into a sole source. I believe it could. If you attract the right people. My question is, if DISA, in which I understood this time, Encore will be first, it's its own vehicle, and there's other ones. When you're doing these source of SOT, when is it that we know whether or not you're going to use a vehicle, or would you just go to your vehicles like ITES does? They just send their source of SOT to just that group of people. But when you're doing it to us as a small business, does that mean you've already determined that you wouldn't use the vehicle?
We have no determinations when we do a source of SOT. This is one of the misnomers that we hear a lot of times when we talk to small businesses. They tell us if we post something on sam.gov, it's a done deal, it's wired to go to a particular place, to a particular company, and it couldn't be further from the truth, because if it was, why bother posting it?
That's exactly why
would we go through all that extra work? When we put out a source of SOT, we are not making any decisions about strategy until we get the responses back. That's why we're going through that whole process, is to be able to gather information and get the market research to inform our decisions. But if we already know where it's going, and that's the reason that we post them to SAM. Now, there have been a couple that have been posted directly to SETI or directly to Encore because of them being first look contractors and the fact that it fits perfectly into the scope of those contracts. There have been times that we would only send the source of SOT there, because no matter how many responses we got from businesses outside of those vehicles, you just wasted their time if it fits on our contracts. So we try to be very cognizant not to waste businesses' time to go through the trouble to respond to it. If it's a perfect fit for one of our internal contracts, that's where it's going to go. Either small or large, that's where it's going to go.
I was trying to just digesting that all and seeing, did I get the answer on? And I think you may have answered it. How do you decide? So, for example, we've seen what decision criteria, maybe 2 or 3 things, right? Mm-hmm. You might have answered that, but I'm not clear. I heard, 1, 2, or 3, because I know that when the RFI, so I got to use both terms at this point, RFI or source of SOT comes out, because I agree with you. I think the people that release it sometimes want something different, more like a source of SOT when it's an RFI, and vice versa. Right. I've seen those myself. So anyway, so that's good that you do a little due diligence for those people that are requesting that. But I've also seen that RFIs and or source of SOTs come out and they automatically go to a vehicle, and I like you, well, am I wasting my time? And so what decision criteria do you use? And I appreciate what you said before. I did digest that you said we try not to waste people's time if we've already decided. But SETI, I know the scope of that. We're a sub on that. And Encore, we're a sub on that. Covers a slew of things. But we don't know. And then even our little tools we have out there, they sometimes say it's pegged for Encore, and so we just let it go when I can prime it. If it's full and open. So what decision criteria do you use to just go to the dynamic small business and I really want to find a new company, or it stays outside of those vehicles? Because I know DISA has contracts that are not in those vehicles. I know it's kind of long.
So to understand that I got the question right, you're wanting to know when we're doing the source of SOT, what do we do with that information and how do we make the decision?
Yeah, like decision criteria.
Okay.
Like thought process.
Okay, so all the different parts of it will play into the decision. The source of SOT is only one piece of the market research. There's other things that we do too, so it all plays in together. What we're looking for in the results of the source of SOT is how many companies out there are qualified that are small businesses, what socioeconomic categories are all those companies, what vehicles are they on. That's actually part of our template, is tell us the vehicles that you're on. And we're looking at that criteria, and we're also looking at our goals for the agency. So if we had 20 hub zone companies on the same vehicle responding to a source of SOT, and we had 4 women-owned and 3 service-disabled and 2 small businesses, chances are, because we like competition, we're going to go with a hub zone set-aside. We have plenty of hub zones on there. We always need numbers for hub zones. We got a lot of interest in it, and we want the competition. So chances are we're going to go with a hub zone set-aside on that. So we take all of the information, and it has to line up in order to make a strategy. Yes, the dynamic small business search tool is one of the tools that we use, and one of the features it actually has, when we got down to that 17 companies, is we could actually send a source of SOT directly to those 17 companies if we were trying to narrow it down and really get a lot of information from them. But all of the different parts of it go into the decision-making process. So I hope that answers the question. And we can talk later if it doesn't. And Carlin would like to add something.
You want the mic.
Where's the microphone? Oh.
I will also tell you, our office, just so you guys know, our office has to concur on every acquisition decision that comes through. And the first thing we want to understand is, can small business do it? Again, she talked about our small business first policy. Every acquisition that comes through is automatically in the small business program unless and until market research determines that it can't. And if it can, so one of the things that we do with SETI and Encore, they are our first look contracts, and as much as we talk about that a lot, we've recently done some analysis. So I just want those that aren't on those vehicles, right now, most of our contracts are not going on those vehicles, so there is still plenty of opportunity on GSA Mass and stuff. So there's opportunities whether you're on it or whether you're not. When we're making acquisition strategies, first thing, can small business do it? We prefer best value trade-off, as I know you do, guys, instead of LPTA. So we're trying to actually reduce competition that allows us to have a good number of proposals come in so we have the time to do a best value trade-off. And if we can get to a further designated category, any of the ones that she's talked about, we are going to look at those. We're also going to balance it against, and when I say we, it is always the contracting officer's decision on what it is. And so the thing, when I say we, meaning it is the contracting officer's decision, but we at DISA, these are the things that we balance against making the decision. Are there socioeconomic categories that we're not meeting our goals on? We didn't make service disabled last year, so we're pushing that one. We didn't make small business. We were really close. So we're pushing all of that first. Now, back to, so we balance all of that into it. Again, if we have enough hub zones, that's always a number we want to go, and they're all on different vehicles. That's a good option. A lot of times our contracting officers have multiple options of what the decision could be, and so we look at holistically what's the right answer. And then, you know, they make a decision. It comes through us. If their market research balances what their decision is, we're good. If it's not going to be set aside for small business, we have to go to SBA, and they have to concur too. So there's a lot of balances and checks and balances in making our decisions, looking at, most importantly, what's best for the warfighter, what's best for the small business industrial base, what's the best for DISA, what's the best for the taxpayer, and what's sometimes the easiest thing to do because we don't have tons of time. So all of that rolls into how we make the decision. So it's the standard government answer of, it depends. But we wanted to share with you the process so you know that it's not a arbitrary decision that we go through. One other thing I want to make folks aware of, because some people are not, the Tolliver case, if you're not familiar with it, and there's still, the Court of Federal Claims has one view, GAO has a different view, but in line with our DISA Small Business First policy, if we know a requirement can be done by our small businesses on SETI or Encore, we're just going to send it directly to them because we know we're going to use it. We're not going to waste your time. We don't need the input. We know small business can do it, and we know the companies on either one of those vehicles, so we'll send it straight to them. However, if we're not sure if small businesses within SETI and Encore can do it, we think they probably can, but we're not 100% sure. The Tolliver case And Court of Federal Claims says, you decide first, can small business do it before you choose a vehicle. GAO doesn't agree with it. GAO says if you have a vehicle, you can go there, and if small business can do it, you can set it aside. If they can't, you can go full and open. We're taking the conservative approach to say, let's check first if industry can support it with small business, and if they can, then we're going to go outside of SETI or Encore. But if it still comes out they can't, then we're probably going back. So that's sometimes where you'll see it on sam.gov and that. So that's just a little more behind our curtain. So. No. The question was, would you release an RFQ or an RFP in 2 locations? We will never do that. We're not allowed.
So thank you. I just have one comment. Over the years, I've worked with your office, the small business office at DISA, and I really appreciated the support. It's not lip service, and we as a company, we really benefited. So I just want to say thank you. Really, we need your advocacy. Otherwise, there's no leveling of the playing field. And then a follow-up question. I want to understand, sometimes, as you commented, Carlin, we see sources sought coming out on both sam.gov as well as some of the DISA preferred vehicles. In those cases, how would the rule of 2 apply? Do you need at least 2 from the DISA vehicles to set aside there, or do you need a combination of the 2 from the sam.gov responses and the responses you receive on the specific vehicles to say it can be set aside as a small?
We would still need 2, because if you put it on the... No, not combined, because they're on, we can't get to both of them.
Okay.
And we want competition, so if we were going to put it on Encore or SETI, we need 2 companies that can compete, because we're looking for competition, and the rule of 2, we have to have 2 that can compete. And if... Right.
So like, for example, in an extreme case, say on an Encore or SETI sources sought, there's only 1 small business response that's deemed qualified, but it's also posted on SAM, and there's also 1. Then what do you do in this case?
So one of the reasons why we put it out on sam.gov and within a vehicle is to save time, because if we can't find 2 or more small businesses on SETI, but then the next step is we have to go out and canvass all of industry. So if we get 1 SETI contractor that can do it and 1 small business not on SETI, we still have to set it aside. We just can't use SETI. It will have to go GSA Mass or FAR Part 15 or whatever common vehicles that we can get 2 or more small businesses in. But what happens was, when we thought we could do it SETI with small business and then we didn't get it, then they had to go back out to see it. So we're trying to save time, because we never have time. So, and it's all Tolliver's fault. So, you know.
And we can talk about more later, because our time is up. And if there's no more questions, thank you all. Oh, we have one last question.
Hey, sorry, I don't want to hold everybody up here, but just to piggyback on what Mr. Goldsby said earlier, thank you for the information and the advocacy. Really appreciate it. One of my questions is, in the beginning of the presentation, you were talking about the increase of the small disadvantaged business numbers and stuff like that. According to the FAR, one of the things that we've been researching as a kind of a small business consortium is direct awards can be done through the SDVOSB program and stuff like that, but you kind of said that, hey, it's the 8A program or bust, right? Is that something that the DISA Small Business Office is aware of, and is it something that you advocate for? And if so, how do we, as the SDVOSB community, kind of bring that to the forefront? Because it's simply not being used in our industry enough.
And there's a reason for that. The 8A program direct award is not anything like the other categories. 8A direct award is designed specifically to have the direct awards like that. Sole source authority for service disabled, women owned, and hub zone exists, but in order to use it, you have to be the only service disabled, hub zone, or women owned company that can do that requirement. That's the only time that you can use that sole source authority. So it's a different game. There can be 100 8As out there that can do the same work, and we can still direct award it. But for all the other categories, the FAR has written that it's a sole source authority, and you have to be the only company that can do it. There cannot be 2 or more.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, very good. So I guess we are at time. So Brenda and Carlin, thank you so much, and thank you to everybody here today too for the engagement. Appreciate all the support from DISA. Thank you.